at the differences between the E1 and the E2 reactions, okay? So we're going to compare them in terms of their rate law, okay? For the E1 mechanism, the rate law is a unimolecular reaction. That is it involves one. What determines the rate determining step is determined by just the concentration, or is determined by the what? By the substrate. Okay. Remember, the substrate is what has the what? The leaving group and the leaving group here. So for the E2 mechanism is determined by not just the substrate alone, but also by the what? The base. Okay. So it is a bimolecular reaction. So the rate determining step is determined by the substrate and also by the base. Now the big barrier in the E1 mechanism is the formation of a what? Of a carbocation. Okay. So the carbocation that is formed at this remember that the E1 is stepwise. Okay. The carbocation will form. Okay. And if the carbocation is not stable, or if the carbocation is not stable, it will rearrange itself to form a more stable carbocation. Okay, so the big barrier, what can hinder it from undergoing this E1 is the carbocation. So if the carbocations that is formed towards the when the leaving group leaves, okay, the carbocation that is formed needs to stabilize for it to be undergo further reaction, which is the deprotonation by the base. But in the E2 mechanism, the carbocation does not have any effect, because as the base is deprotonating, the leaving group is going, so there is no room for formation of what? A carbocation. Okay, so the last one is the E1 requires, does the E1 requires a strong base? That's like a question. Okay, now since the leaving group is leaving before the base deprotonates, then the E1 does not really need a strong base, because it doesn't really need a strong base. Why? Because the leaving group is already leaving. Thereby, deprotonation can easily take place without much effort. So it doesn't require a strong base. But for the E2 mechanism, the E2 mechanism is deprotonating, and at the same time, the leaving group is what? Is leaving. So as it is deprotonating, it needs in fact the base needs to be a strong base for it to deprotonate and then exit the leaving group. So for the E2 mechanism, it requires a strong base, but for the E1 mechanism, it doesn't require a strong base. So this is the core difference you can also look at. Okay, in terms of stepwise, and in terms of the reaction kinetics, or sort of, we can also say that the E1 mechanism is a stepwise, right? Because it involves carbocation formation, then the next thing is involves deprotonation. But for the E2 mechanism, it's concise. So I can also add here that E1 is stepwise, while E2 is concerted, right? It's concerted because it takes place at once, okay? It doesn't involve stepwise formation, okay? But this is stepwise, this is concerted reaction, all happening at the same time, okay?